there, it's Tanya from Azteco. Now, there is a time and place for strategic thought leadership. However, in this video series, we would like to focus on action leadership, the people who are driving Bitcoin consumer adoption by making it easier and simpler to use. And so I am delighted to welcome here today Joël Kai Lenz, the press spokesperson for Relai. Joël, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Tanya.
So this is very exciting because Joël is always the person interviewing other people. You've probably seen his face all over, whether it be YouTube or Twitter or somewhere else. But now he's on the other side, and I'd like to give him the opportunity to introduce himself a little bit and share more about his background.
Sure. So, as you mentioned, my name is Joël Kai Lenz. I am 28 years old still. I'm going to turn 29 in a few weeks. And I am the press spokesperson for Relai. Before actually working at Relai, I used to freelance more than a decade, and I used to be a journalist. And at one point, I was done with that life. I was like, okay, let's change sites over and do the whole press work for a European Bitcoin company based in Switzerland. And for our Swiss and Italian residents, we offer what every Bitcoin platform offers, the ability to buy and sell Bitcoin.
And what motivated you to shift from your media industry to focus on Bitcoin?
So Bitcoin was always at the center of my attention. I first used Bitcoin in 2011 to, change cash to something digital to buy a plane ticket with a friend of mine. And then I sort of lost track of it. And in 2013, I had to send money to a friend in South Africa. Didn't want to use PayPal, didn't want to use Western Union, it was just too expensive. We quickly figured out that he's also into Bitcoin, so I was able to send him some sats. Obviously, back then on-chain, so nothing with Lightning or that sort. And ever since then, I just used it as internet money. And in 2017, really got serious about the whole matter because I was seeing some potential there. I was always an internet kid. I was interested in the way platforms work and the way people sort of live their lives online and the stories they tell. And then, it was actually a no-brainer to get involved more, to learn more about the aspects of Bitcoin, the technical stuff, the philosophical stuff. And then really in 2019, sort of took on the first couple of Bitcoin clients as a freelancer back then, still working as a journalist next to it. So I was sort of splitting my time between the two. And at one point then just went, well, I'm basically done with the media world. It was just too much. Who do you own a favor? And I decided to, support the Bitcoin ecosystem. And back then, still a little bit of like the crypto stuff. I know you shouldn't mention it, but they paid well, let's say, and you need to pay the bills. But obviously I knew deep down it's Bitcoin only, and that's what I've been focusing on. And now a little bit more than a year, I'm with Relai, where I'm helping them out with the media presence and obviously being in front of the camera.
And then for all of those people who don't know, what is Relai?
Sure. So in simple terms, we're a Bitcoin-only platform. So there's no other crypto coins. There's not even stable coins or anything. And all we do for our Swiss and Italian clients and residents is to actually convert fiat or euros and Swiss francs in this case to Bitcoin, or the other way around. If they want to convert Bitcoin to fiat, that is obviously also the possibility. It's all offered in one simple app, one simple interface. And the great part about it all is we're a self-custodial app. So we really want to keep the ethos of, owning your own assets and owning your coins outright alive. And therefore, you may have some boundaries if you're like a newbie and getting started. But we're also trying to solve that problem and get as many people to hold on to their own coins as possible. And
how do you see then Relai's role in simplifying Bitcoin adoption for everyday users?
So there's a few ways of how we actually do this. The most obvious one is if people want to get Bitcoin, they know where to go to. But the other stuff we really also focus on, and essentially a lot of my work is just the educational aspect. So trying to break down in simple layman's terms, what is Bitcoin? What are the different nuances to it? What do you need to watch out for? Difference between custodial, self-custodial, all of these things, as well as, with our app, we also have a Lightning wallet enabled. So it is able for people to actually also spend their Bitcoin if they want to. And just have a companion with them where it's simple to contact somebody if there's any urgency, but yet you still get into the Bitcoin world, whether you're a total newbie or a pro, in the right manner, which is obviously by holding on to your own keys and coins.
And what future innovations or features in the Relay app are you most excited to share about?
I guess not a whole lot like fancy or new. I mean, if you sometimes on Bitcoin X or Nostr or wherever, everyone has these great ideas and they're all wonderful, but we often have to talk to people in the real world and not everyone gets it. I think just overall looking at our app the last couple of months, it's really becoming more stable. We obviously have a growing user base, so that helps. And just basically solving all of these little problems. We offer the app in 4 languages. So having to translate, having to simplify, break down copy, having features that enable people to save, to buy, to spend Bitcoin. So there's not really something I would say that is a highlight for me from like a technological standpoint, but just getting more people onto Bitcoin the proper way and really having a simple interface that works is, I think, stuff we are most certainly proud of. And then who knows in the future if there will be, one of these technologies breaking through that you can actually also have more of these advancements in the app.
And then switching a little bit into other topics, in your opinion, what countries do you think will lead the way in Bitcoin adoption, especially since you're spending so much time in the press and you have to keep up with what's happening worldwide?
Sure. So, I mean, obviously we have the countries like El Salvador, Bhutan. You casually hear stuff like Suriname or these kind of campaigns that are pushing forward. Me personally, we're at the brink of maybe a US Bitcoin strategic reserve. That is exciting. Obviously working for a Swiss company and being half Swiss, I would also be eager to see adoption in Switzerland. There's actually an initiative going on. I recently interviewed both in German and English the heads behind that initiative, and it's just fascinating to see that Bitcoin as neutral money is able to actually step in and potentially help out. But I would say currently you would just need to say the US because that's the most likely from the promises we've been told. Let's see if they keep up. But I would love to see, any country in South America. There's always been this debate with like Argentina and sort of really using Bitcoin to get back on the map and maybe escape the hellhole they've been having with high inflation, uncertainty, and really have a bright and orange future.
And then talking about one of your other hats, since you wear quite a few, what inspired you to start the Rabbit Hole Stories podcast?
Oh, yeah. That actually came about a funny interaction. So I used to live in London for a few years, and my co-host and I, we met at a Bitcoin meetup. We were at a pub. We drank a little bit too much. And then at like 1 a.m. in the morning, or maybe it was 3 a.m., I can't remember, we said, yeah, we should start a Bitcoin podcast, and sat down together and essentially never stopped recording since. We did change the format a little bit, but our idea was really to have a podcast where you hear all of these stories and where it's not, I would say, one of the, hype podcasts or like the daily shows or something. They all have their place and meaning in the space, but we really wanted to focus on actually hearing the rabbit hole stories. Most of them are more or less the same. It either starts with a problem that Bitcoin solved. It was a friend who recommended it, and you go down the altcoin way and then you find your way back into Bitcoin, or simply just out of necessity. We had someone who has a death in a family, lost everything during the '08 crisis, or whatever the case might be. Business closed down, you need to flee a country, and Bitcoin really is the solution to all of these problems. So hearing these stories and also seeing the many different faces in Bitcoin is really fascinating.
And then I just wanted to build up a little bit on the stories, because then there's also the human connection, which is what role do you think in-person connections play in your work in the Bitcoin community?
Oh yeah, they're huge. I mean, we're lucky at Relay that we can work remote. It has its advantages. Just needing to put on a short jumper and then working in your PJs the whole day. But you kind of miss out on the human interaction, the office banter, the water cooler chat. So whenever I get the opportunity to, for example, go to events, meetups, or also if there's something interesting happening where Bitcoiners gather, I think that's a huge plus. And then if you go down the other ways, trying to orange pill family members, friends, it's always easier to do in person. You can explain so much more. You can maybe draw something down on a notepad. Maybe you have like a good book with you and you want to introduce them to that. So I think not losing the common touch and like the ERL experiences is essential to Bitcoin. And there are also great services such as what you guys do to also bring back that, let's say, transactional layer with something physical. Even if you only hold on to it for a little bit with that coupon, you still have something you can go into a shop and exchange this way. And the more people do this, the better, because then more people will start using Bitcoin.
How do you balance content creation, podcasting, and your role at Relai? I think this is a personal question that I have, which is, how are you doing everything at once, basically?
It's a lot of keeping your to-do list in check and essentially planning. Naturally, I'm a bit of a planning freak. So I like to, if I meet with friends, I want to know the time, I want to know the place. I have a Google Calendar entry ready for me with everything, and then I plan accordingly. So there's a lot of that. I personally use something called the time blocking mechanism, or time blocking practice, if you want to say so, where you block certain times in your calendar for certain tasks. You color them differently to have a visual representation. So doing that helps a lot. And then obviously also, over the weekends, I might not tweet as much. I might not research as much. So really planning also some downtime. And even though it's hard, stepping away sometimes from the Bitcoin stuff.
And then for our final question, what do you hope people will say about your work 50 years from now?
50 years, 78. That's a good question. Looking back, I think if they've seen someone in front of the camera or interacted who's never been too lazy for a bad dad joke, or never been down in any fashion, so always keeping the spirits up and being able to teach them something about Bitcoin, or maybe a little bit on the more broader spectrum, maybe, finance, monetary policy, whatever. If they can say that, they kind of go like, yeah, I learned this because I've seen your videos or engaged with your content. That's what I'm most happy about. I don't need to be famous or anything. It's just if they have the help they need and it came through my content, that's all I ask for.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining, Joël. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.